This is the Basic Concepts Categories bundle, and there is a lot of options in this bundle, which is really fantastic. So you can totally tailor it for the needs of your children, whether you're working individually with them or as a group, because you can totally do either one with this bundle. So in the package, there are basically 4 different ways that we're targeting categorizing. So the first one is just naming items within a bigger category. So obviously you're going to do some teaching first and teaching the children about what categories are and how to name things within a category. So you might pull out this mat and you're going to talk about the colors. And so you're going to say, these are all colors. There's green, there's pink, there's blue, and maybe the child already knows the colors, so they're already naming the colors, and you're like, yeah, that's yellow. It's a color. And then the same thing with the shapes, right? Like they might know a lot of these shapes and just name them, which is fantastic. But then you're always drawing in the bigger category name of, oh yeah, a heart and a rectangle. Those are shapes. And then we're just going to encourage them to think of other shapes or other colors within the bigger category. So obviously some are going to be easier than others because, an early learning child, they may not know other shapes to like say within this category or other colors, right? So you may have to adjust this depending upon the level of your children. This identifying items within the bigger category might be easier for the kindergarten kids or the grade 1 kids. So we're obviously going to adjust the activity to fit for the level of the kids. For our early learners, it might just be talking about the bigger categories, coming up with the items within the bigger category ourselves, and just help supporting them that way. So there's categories of colors, shapes, there's big and small sizes, there's foods. Like the food one would probably be easier for the early learners. They can all think of different foods, right? And they might be able to think of things that are big and little, even just by looking around the room. Then there's animals, types of furniture, clothing and vehicles, people and body parts. So again, you can do this individually with the kids. Just, pick a mat that you want to target that day. We suggest probably just picking one mat per session, not having all of them spread out across the table because that would be overwhelming and just too confusing. So pick 1 or 2 mats that you want to focus on that day, and you can have a group of kids around the table with you all contributing to the discussion or just do it individually. So that's one way to target the categories, pardon me. And then this one is a little bit different, right? Because they're going to name the items within the box and then have to come up with the bigger category name. So if they're able to say shoe, shirt, hat, can they come up with the category that it's clothing, right? And the same for chair, bed, sofa. Can they come up with the bigger name of what all of those things are? And again, at first, it's probably a lot of teaching the kids to give them those bigger category names because we don't always do that as a vocabulary lesson or just when we're talking with the children. We're really good at just naming items, but sometimes we forget to draw in that bigger category name. So always teaching first and then having them do more of the expressive task. And then part of the instructions do go through receptive tasks versus expressive tasks. So always knowing that we want to do the understanding part first and then having the children do the expressive or the telling part after that. So there's that. There's a variety of different mats for that activity. And then the third one is listed again. It's talking about what doesn't belong. So again, to start off with, you're likely going to just make sure that the children know the smaller items within that category. They might be able to say, a category name for the majority of the items. And if you're talking about apple, hot dog, sundae, oh, what are all of those things? They might be able to tell you that it's food, but that's not necessarily the focus of this activity. it's just knowing whether they understand the idea that items belong together or they don't belong together. So again, you might have to do some teaching and just talking about, well, apples, what do we do with apples? We eat them. Hot dog, what do we do with a hot dog? We eat it. A sundae, what do we do with a sundae? We eat it. A baseball, what do we do with a baseball? Do we eat a baseball? No, right? And get into some silly conversations with that, which is pretty fun. But you can also adjust the level of this activity too, because often the kids can figure out, okay, yeah, the ball doesn't belong, or like the pumpkin, it doesn't belong. But having to explain why is much more challenging. So we don't want you to get stuck on the fact that they can't tell you why quite yet. That's okay. The first step is that they should just be able to know that one of these items doesn't belong. And again, we can do the teaching, like I just mentioned, of why it doesn't belong. And then that would be just a higher level skill that we would expect of them later on, being able to explain why. And again, that might be more for like maybe the kindergarten kids, but the grade 1 kids should be able to give you some kind of idea of why the item doesn't belong with the rest. So there's a couple of mats that look like this to talk about what doesn't belong. And then this one is the same thing. It just says, find and cross out what doesn't belong. And then it does ask, why don't they belong? But again, you're going to adjust that depending upon the level of the kids that you're working with. So that's talking about why things don't belong. And then the last part of this categorizing bundle is comparing and contrasting. So there's a couple of different ways you can do this one too. So here they talk about, there's a bubble for the car and then there's a bubble for the airplane. So here on this side, you would just be listing the things that describe a car, right? Like it has 4 wheels, it drives on the road. I can't think of something else for a car, that has a horn that goes honk or beep. And then for the airplane, you would be saying things like, oh, it has 2 wheels, it has wings, it flies in the sky. I honestly don't know if an airplane has a horn, to be honest. Maybe it does. That would be a great conversation piece, because maybe airplanes really do have horns. I don't know. But then you're going to then just figure out what things are the same about the car and the airplane, and then what things are different. So the things that are the same, you might put in that middle circle. And it's really just then a discussion about like, how are these things the same, but then what makes them different? Oh, actually here, if I actually read the instructions on the page, it says, list the similarities in the middle section and the differences in the outer sections. There we go. It helps if you actually read the instructions. So you're going to talk about what things are the same on these 2 items in the middle, and then what are the differences. And then obviously the adult will be doing the writing. Our kiddos can't quite do that yet. And again, you might have to start with the whole teaching part of it first and really talking about how things are the same and different. And then once the children understand that idea of how things are the same and different, then they might be able to come up with those things on their own. So there's that method of talking about similarities and differences. And then it's the same kind of idea here with these ones. There's just not the bubbles and the circles, but you're going to talk about the things that are the same between a mouth and a nose, write them in this section, and then just talk about the things that are different with a mouth and a nose. So same kind of idea, just a different format. And this one, it's more of a teaching, it's a category visual, and this, it might lend itself more to the older kids, but sometimes it might be helpful like to have that bigger circle of vehicles, and then you're having little offshoots of it so the kids can see that, okay, a car and a boat and a train, they all still belong to that big circle of vehicles. And maybe you have something like this on just like one sheet of paper, like this is very busy. So you might just, if the kids need more of a visual, you can do this kind of idea on a page itself. So this is just like a help if you're finding that the kiddos are not really understanding this whole idea that these things belong together. Okay, so yeah, again, with every section, there's always the receptive understanding task and then the expressive telling task. So if you have any questions about any of that, again, just reach out to your SLP.